What happens when a billionaire CEO's mockery becomes her biggest mistake? When a simple mechanic walks into a room full of PhDs and changes everything with just his hands and heart? This is the story of how prejudice, corporate snobbery, and racial bias collided with raw talent, and the shocking moment that left an entire boardroom speechless. Drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories of underdogs who prove everyone wrong. Victoria Sterling stood at the head of the gleaming boardroom at Sterling Technologies, her razor-sharp suit reflecting the Dallas skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. As CEO of one of the nation's fastest-growing tech companies, she'd built her empire on ruthless efficiency and cutting wit that could slice through steel. But today, her multi-million-dollar prototype engine sat silent and broken, mocking 4 weeks of failed attempts by her best engineers. The revolutionary design that was supposed to change the renewable energy game had become her biggest nightmare. When her assistant suggested bringing in a mechanic from Kansas City, Victoria nearly burst into laughter. After her team of MIT graduates and Stanford PhDs couldn't solve the problem, what could some grease monkey possibly accomplish? Marcus Washington stepped into that pristine boardroom like he'd entered a different world. His worn work boots left faint marks on the marble floor, his calloused hands contrasted sharply with the manicured fingers around the mahogany table. 3 generations of his family had run Washington Auto Repair on the south side of Kansas City, not glamorous, but honest work that kept families moving. The snickers started immediately. Engineers whispered behind their notepads. Someone muttered about charity cases. But Marcus had heard it all before. The dismissive looks, the assumptions, the way people's eyes glazed over when they saw a black man in work clothes. Victoria's voice cut through the tension like a blade. So, Mr. Washington, my assistant claims you have some magical touch with engines. Care to enlighten us about how you plan to fix what our best minds couldn't? Marcus stepped toward the prototype, his movements calm and deliberate. Engines don't care about degrees, ma'am. They care about being understood. That's when Victoria delivered the line that would haunt her, "Fix this engine, and I'll marry you." The room erupted in uncomfortable laughter, but Marcus didn't flinch. "Careful what promises you make," he replied, his voice steady as granite. Words have power. While the engineers had spent weeks running computer simulations and theoretical models, Marcus did something revolutionary: he listened. His hands moved across the engine like a doctor examining a patient, feeling for problems that couldn't be seen on a screen. Within minutes, he found what the PhDs had missed: a hairline crack in the intake manifold and misrouted wiring that confused the engine sensors. Simple problems hidden beneath layers of overthinking. Sometimes, Marcus said as he made adjustments, the biggest problems have the smallest causes. You just have to be humble enough to look. The senior engineer scoffed. He doesn't even know the technical specifications. This is ridiculous. Marcus glanced up. Specifications are just suggestions, sir. The engine tells you what it really needs if you know how to listen. When Marcus stepped back and nodded to start the engine, the usual sputtering began. Victoria prepared her cutting remarks, ready to reclaim control. But then something miraculous happened. The engine smoothed out. The rhythm steadied. The prototype that had frustrated brilliant minds for weeks suddenly purged like a content cat, running flawlessly for the first time. The boardroom fell dead silent. Engineers stared at their readings in disbelief. The impossible had just happened before their eyes. "How?" someone whispered. Marcus wiped his hands on his rag. "Respect. When you approach something with respect instead of trying to prove how smart you are, amazing things happen." Victoria felt her world tilt. For years, she'd climbed corporate ladders by being the smartest, toughest person in every room. She dismissed people like Marcus without a second thought, assuming education equaled intelligence and suits meant superiority. But here stood a man who'd accomplished in an hour what her team couldn't do in a month. Not through arrogance or academic credentials, but through patience, respect, and genuine skill. The younger engineers crowded around Marcus, eager to learn. The older ones sat in stunned silence, their assumptions crumbling. Someone who'd been invisible to their world had just saved their careers. As the meeting ended and engineers lingered around the still-running prototype, Victoria remained seated, processing what had happened. When she finally spoke to Marcus, her voice carried a humility she hadn't felt in years. "You embarrassed me today," she said quietly. Marcus shook his head. "That wasn't my intention, ma'am. I just came to fix an engine." "No," Victoria continued, "you embarrassed me by showing me how small I'd become. How I'd let success turn me into someone who judges worth by appearances instead of character." Marcus packed his tools without fanfare. He'd fixed more than just machinery, he'd repaired something broken in the people around him. The engineers who'd mocked him now saw him as a teacher. The CEO who'd belittled him now understood the poverty of her own perspective. "Thank you," the youngest engineer called out as Marcus headed for the door. He nodded once. "Remember, every person you meet knows something you don't. Respect that, and you'll learn more than any textbook can teach." Victoria stayed long after everyone left, listening to the steady rhythm of the engine Marcus had brought to life. It wasn't just running, it was teaching her that true expertise comes in many forms, and wisdom often walks in work boots. She thought about her own journey from a small Arizona town to corporate success, remembering the hunger and determination that had driven her. Somehow, she'd forgotten that same drive existed in people she'd learned to overlook. When the board met the next day, Victoria surprised everyone with her opening statement: "Sometimes the answers we need don't come from the top of the corporate ladder. They come from places we're too proud to look." This story isn't just about fixing engines. It's about fixing the broken way we see each other. Marcus Washington walked into that boardroom as the man nobody believed in and left as the teacher they all needed. Corporate snobbery, racial prejudice, and class discrimination all crumbled when genuine skill met genuine need. The mechanic from Kansas City proved that respect, patience, and humility can accomplish what arrogance never could. If this story opened your eyes to seeing people differently, hit that subscribe button and share where you're watching from in the comments. Stories like these need to be heard, and every subscription helps us reach more people with these powerful messages of hope and justice. Remember, never mock someone's work just because it looks different from your own. The person you underestimate today might be the one who saves you tomorrow. And that's a lesson worth more than all the degrees and titles in the world.